Good day. In the beginning class this past Tuesday, and this I'm saying this to everyone, but particularly I want to bring you online students up to speed. We did an exercise, and I hate that you missed those. The exercise had to do with how you would counsel somebody who came to you, and we were sort of making out like you were already a licensed mental health care professional. What would you do? How would you uh, go through a session where the person was, you were new to the field, and this person came to you for counseling? There's more to it than that. If you um, if you can imagine a scenario like that, and the one we used in class was a fellow who worked at a government facility, some sort of a government department agency or whatever the case was, and he was under pressure from a lot of people, including his own dad. And the class actually did a very, very good job intuitively of pointing out what they would use as an opening uh, to begin to establish the problems this person was having. And a couple or three or four people mentioned that they would, I think one or two said they would want to establish trust, because we did talk about that, I think, prior to the scenario that they were presented with. Why am I saying all that? I'm saying that to tell you what counseling is. Counseling requires trust. We established that in the classroom meeting the other day, and so we're going to reiterate that for you people online. Counseling requires trust. Psychotherapy, psychoanalysis, which is part of counseling, it's just not as deeply involved. This requires trust. So I have to establish a working relationship with you. You have to trust me, and you have to believe that I'm going to help you. And there's a lot more to it than that. But that's a very basic building block for counseling, for psychoanalysis. Counseling requires a wee bit of psychoanalysis, sometimes more so than other cases. Excuse me, I'm getting comfortable. In some cases, it's not quite as much. It just depends on the seriousness of the problem. Who decides how serious that problem is? The person that's having it. It's not my decision. I'm not going to tell you, oh, don't worry, that's nickel dime. You might as well get up and walk out then. It's a very important thing in your life, or you wouldn't have come to a counselor. You would have handled it on your own. And some people try to handle stuff like that on anything really on their own, when really if they sought out some professional help, they'd be much better off, much quicker in most cases. But I know I'm giving you a lot of information kind of scattered out, and I don't mean to, but I want you to understand the relationship between successful counseling and establishment of trust, because you've got to be able to tell me everything on your mind. I've got to know everything there is to know about you, everything there is to know about you, reasonably everything. So let's look at what it is. Counseling actually emerged in the 20th century, so it's not that old. And what happened was the more industrialization that took place, the more pressure people began to feel on themselves. I'll give you kind of an example of that, not from America, but in France, right around the French Revolution time. You can look the date up if you'd like to. You don't have to. The problem that began to emerge there was that industrialization was taking place, and it was supplanting people's lifestyle. And I'm trying to make this simple because this is sociology, and this is not a sociology class. I used to teach sociology. So during that period of time, there was, I suppose you could call them a faction that were troubled by this change in the lifestyle paradigm. In other words, I'm being moved from what's traditionally thought of as my culture into this new part of my culture that I don't really understand yet. So the key word for them was specialization. They were worried that the involvement in industrialization, the age of industry, machines taking the place of human labor on farms, even that those people who specialized were going to leave this uh, agrarian existence, this agriculture-based existence, and they were going to move into these jobs that are related to industrialization, offices, stuff like that, and that it was going to destroy the fabric of that part of French culture. And it didn't. But there were pressures. Now, there wasn't anybody to turn to. Maybe you talk to your pastor or a family member, whatever. There was no professional place to go to discuss these problems. So the 20th century brought in all of this new stress, this new change, this anxiety, etc., and there became a need for people to have somebody to turn to. Sigmund Freud obviously was around, and his up into the 1930s, he's working on his psychoanalytic psychodynamic theory, which includes obviously psychotherapy. We'll be talking about that character later, not today. Talk therapy, it's called, still is, psychotherapy, psychoanalysis, trying to determine what your problem is. We use a little bit of that in counseling. There is a difference between counseling and psychotherapy. We'll talk about that briefly. But the definition of counseling is that this is, and I'm not giving you an official one, I will in a moment. The definition is kind of trite in a way, I suppose, but you must understand that difference between psychotherapy and counseling. But this all evolved in the early 20th century because of the experiences people were beginning to have. Many different types of experiences that were difficult for people to cope with. Imagine, and some of you have, changing cultures. Some of you have moved here from other cultures, and now you're in this culture, and it can be demanding. It can be anxiety causing in some cases. Hope it isn't. If it is, we got folks to help you on campus. But imagine that. That's a change, but imagine your whole life being turned upside down because of something out of your control. And that's kind of what led into some of this counseling stuff. You couldn't go to a professional. You could go to neighbors, or you could go to a priest or a pastor or friends, some family members, maybe your family doctor if you had one, or a doctor, but they weren't trained in this. Nobody was trained in counseling, psychotherapy, etc. So there had to be something developed to take care of that. And it was, and it initially became counseling / psychoanalysis, and now it's evolved into something even more delineated. So, and the differences are really apparent. Let me give you the differences, and then let me go backwards and talk more about the counseling realm as compared to psychotherapy. I can tell you right away that if you want a basic view of this, then you can look at the difference in the depth of what psychotherapy is based upon and the lack of depth, but not in a bad way, that counseling is based on. So you, if you're a counselor, you don't diagnose a person or label a person. Rather than do that, we work within whatever framework of understanding makes the most sense for the client. So I'm not going to sit in a session with a client, and we don't call them patients because that indicates sickness. You're not sick, you're just having some troubles. We're going to work in a system, in a framework of what you understand. I'm not going to give you therapeutic terminology, for example. We're going to talk briefly about why you're there, and then we're going to try to get to the root of the problem. What's troubling you? Well, my husband's doing this, or my wife said that, or whatever it is. Something that other people might think is silly. In your life, it isn't. So that's kind of the opening to this difference between counseling and psychotherapy. And let's talk about that for a few minutes. Defining counseling. Well, when you go to see a counselor, what is counseling? It's what are the ideas, the principles that link together the different experiences of counseling clients? How do you understand and define counseling? Got a gnat flying around my face, sorry. So there are a lot of definitions, and all of these basically come down to the same thing. Professional relationship between a trained counselor and a client. It's designed to help a client understand and clarify their views, of their life space. What's your life space? It's where it's everything around you. Reach your goals. These are self-determined goals that you set for yourself. And how do you do it? Meaningful and well-informed choices, and taking care of problems, emotional problems, interpersonal problems. That's just one facet of the definition. Counseling is an application of one or more psychological theories, CBT, REBT, recognized in a set of communication skills. So in other words, I can give you the terminologies related to counseling, not necessarily in-depth psychotherapy, and then we can use your experience to build an understanding. There is a little intuition involved, but not a lot. I mentioned that in my class Tuesday, the in-class folk. I said, look, there's very little intuition. You have to be careful with that, by the way, because the intuition will send you down the wrong track. But you have to know that there is an established understanding, and some of it is based on intuition. And then there are other interpersonal factors. Clients' intimate concerns, for example, their personal problems, or their aspirations. What do I want to do? Where do I want to go? How do I want to be? The word counseling and the word psychotherapy are umbrella terms, and they cover a wide range of talk therapies. You have to be a trained individual to be able to do it right. So there's the kick against intuition. You can go talk to somebody who's not trained, and they're going to respond with intuitive kind of things that mean nothing, because you got to know how to recognize a problem. So I hope these make sense. All of these things can be brought together in one thing that's common to it all. All of these definitions and all these explanations I just gave you, mainly explanations, are basically framed from a point of view of the counselor. You primarily seek something done by a counselor as the goal of recognition of the definition. I know that's kind of hard to digest, so I'll try to make it simple. You're looking for a professional to help you. I'm a trained professional counselor. And that's basically it. Counseling is defined as purposeful, and here we go. I'm finally getting to it, so hope you bear with me. It's a purposeful, private conversation, and notice that word conversation, arising from the intention of one person to reflect on and resolve a problem in living, and the willingness of another person to assist in that endeavor. That's a crazy way of saying you're going to come to me and we're going to have a conversation that's private to us, and it's going to have to do with your life, and we're going to try to help you resolve a problem with your life. And it may include family, it may include friends, it can be with couples, it can be single, whatever the case is. So there are things that we do want to focus in on. There are some assumptions, and I'll give you these assumptions. There's a lot of them, but I'll run over them very quickly because we're starting to get long here. 16 minutes into this thing. It's hard to keep your attention that long. The key assumptions, if you want to head your notes with this, the key assumptions that underpin and are applied by the definition that I just told you. Counseling, the definition, counseling is a purposeful private conversation arising from the intention of one person to reflect on and resolve a problem in living with the willingness of another person to assist in that endeavor. Okay, really fancy thing. And here's what it means. Counseling is an activity that can only happen if the person seeking help, which is the client, wants it to happen. 50 counselors can't help you if you're not willing to be helped. It takes place when someone's troubled and invites another person and allows another person to enter into a particular kind of relationship with them, a counseling relationship. If the person is not ready to extend that invitation, then it's not going to work. In other words, you have to open up. You have to open up to your counselor, tell him everything that I mentioned this already. Tell me everything I need to know so that I can help you with your problem. And if there's anything less than that, then counseling is not going to work. It's not going to take place. The person that's seeking the counseling needs to be actively engaged in finding ways to overcome their problem. And that's what I'm here for as your counselor. Come to see me. But we're co-participants. That's why we say client and not patient. You're not just a passive recipient of interventions. You're working with me to seek a solution to whatever it is that's going on. That's just one of the assumptions of counseling. As I say, there are quite a few of them. There's actually 11 of them. I don't think I want to tie your time up that long to go through all 11 of them. Basically, counseling is based on a conversation. That's all it is. Talk things through. And my job is to help you talk through those things, generate new possibilities for action in the case of seeking some healing or some solution. You may have been able to resolve some of your problems alone, but you're going to run into some that you can't. So we want to help you resolve those, and we're going to give you the framework. You hear that a lot in counseling. We're going to give you tools to work with to get to that point. Counseling depends on the creation of a relationship. Very simple. And I have to have your help to help you. I hope that makes sense. We're going to talk about things that are painful. We're going to talk about things that are troubling. That's the trust part. All of this is trust, but you have to be able to open up and allow that to happen. Seeking counseling alone is not an indicator, or let me back up. Seeking counseling, and strike out the word alone. Seeking counseling is not an indicator that you have a pathological problem, a disease, and it's not also an indicator that you are deficient in any way. Everybody has problems. We all have problems. Some of them worse than others. So what we're saying here, and this is one of the assumptions, this is down the list a ways, halfway through actually, we are looking to convince you that you're okay. You're saying, well, I'm not okay. This is troubling me. What I'm saying is you're not deficient. There's nothing broken up here. Everything up here is okay. We just got to rearrange some things. That's all. Change some priorities maybe, or change some behaviors, or whatever the case is, to help you better adjust. We don't necessarily have, I personally do, but we don't, in general, a counselor doesn't necessarily have special training of, or knowledge even, of psychological theories. Counseling is more grounded in ordinary human qualities, such as the ability and capacity to listen, sensitivity to the experience of others. I'm just naming off a few things. Personal integrity, being resourceful enough to take advantage of opportunities related to the counseling field, and then solving difficulties. You just run into a place where you need this help. Another assumption is you allowing time and space as the client to go through a sort of a list of subcategories. I won't define these in depth. I'll just tell you what they are. But this is in line with these other assumptions that I've been talking to you about. As a matter of fact, I've given you 6 assumptions already, and they all sound familiar. I mean, they all sound similar, and they're supposed to be. So basically, wrap it up in this first 6 into this package, labeled it, I'm willing to work together with you to solve my problem. So we get to the 7th assumption, and we're beginning to understand that there's a space involvement. I've got to open up space, my personal space to you. And how do we go about doing that? Well, we use encouragement, and this is going to sound odd, permission to speak. Who gets the permission to speak? Well, that sounds like I'm in control. I'm not. What's meant by that is I open up the space for you to speak. So I'm giving you encouragement to share. Voice all your aspects. Tell me all about the experience that you've kept silenced for so long. And do it in your own way, in your own words. Some people scream and yell. They get angry, not at the counselor, but at the situation. So that's a sub-component of the 7th assumption. That's A. B is respect for difference. There can't be any bias in counseling. If you're a biased person, you can't be a counselor, because it really indicates hatred, right? That's judgment. That's not my job as a counselor. I'm not going to judge you, and certainly not going to hate you. Let's say you're from Haiti and you come to, no pun intended, you come to see me. I'm not going to say, God, man, I don't really care too much for some Haitian people. Give me a break, or whatever. It doesn't matter. Somebody that's different. Ethnocentricity is the judgmental attitude some people have toward other people related to their culture, when basically it's nothing more than judging them in inferiority. You're different from me, therefore you're inferior. That's what ethnocentricity is, and it doesn't work anywhere, but particularly in counseling. So I'm going to respect you. I'm going to respect the difference. I'm going to respect your value system, your personal values, and your personal desires. And I want you to tell me about those things. I'm going to aid you in talking about those things. Another part of the assumption in number 7 is affirmation. We're going to have some core values. We're going to probably talk them out in the beginning of the session. First session: honesty, integrity, care, belief, the worth and value of a person as an individual, and we're going to commit ourselves to a dialogue of collaboration. We're going to be reflexive. We're going to be flexible. I'm going to count on your interdependence and a sense of common good. What does that mean? It means we're working together in an honest situation without any disrespect. If you come to me with some off-the-wall thing, I'm not going to say, get out of here. I'm going to say, oh, wow, okay, let's talk this out. Let's see what's up. So the practice itself is a practice. The counseling practice is built on a distinctive set of values, moral positions, and respect and affirmation of the worth of the individual person. I can't look down on you and be your counselor, right? So that's the affirmation. Now let's move to assumption 8, and we're almost done, I promise. Counseling is an arena for support. It's an arena for reflection. It's an arena for renewal. And it's really unique to modern societies. There was no need for this back before industrialization. People worked things out. They were in agriculture. They weren't. You had storekeepers in the towns, etc. That wasn't industrialization. That was out of need. I need to go buy this implement if I couldn't make it myself. Right? I got to buy some grain to plant whatever. So all that was that. The pressure came from failure of the crop or your cattle getting killed or whatever the case was. It wasn't like it is now. So we have to worry about these modern things. Cultural resources have to do with the necessities of life in the particular circumstances you live in. So we're taking that into account when we have these sessions. What do? How are we going about that? We're still in an assumption labeled number 8. We're going to use conversation. We're going to use ideas. We're going to use some theory, psychological theory, maybe some altered states of consciousness, problem-solving algorithms, technology that's beneficial, and so on and so forth. These are things that are tools for us to use in a counseling session. Look quickly at the last 3. Number 9, the potential outcomes are divided into 3 broad categories. So we're going to briefly go over these. Resolution of the original problem. You're hopefully achieving an understanding or a different perspective of the problem. You arrive at a personal acceptance of the problem or dilemma, and you take action to change the situation. Now, that's a mixture of what we call problem-solving focused and emotion-focused approaches to taking care of this situation that you're in. So resolution, that's a combination of those 2 things. Problem focus is ridding yourself of the problem. Emotion focused is dealing with the problem if it's ongoing, and then by managing your emotions. The second thing in the 9th assumption is learning. I'm going to give you new understandings. We'll do that together. Skills, strategies, make you better able to handle situations that are in your life. And you find there's similarities. There are very a large amount of similarities in the problems that you run into. If you stop and you tear them down, you'll see that. And then finally, social inclusion. I want to stimulate energy, and I want to increase the capacity of your ability to contribute to your well-being, and basically to help you turn that around and do the same for other people. So it's a learning experience. The last 2, counseling exists in a social context in a cultural context. The term counselor and the term client are social value-based roles. And you got to understand the meaning of those, and that would be part of the educational counseling sessions. We want to know the importance of things in your culture. How do you apply social functions in what you do? I know this sounds pretty complicated, but it really isn't. And the meaning of counseling in terms of how it's designed to help you. So those are there's 10 and 11 kind of go together. The 11th one is basically a definition of a frontline service to help people. So 10 and 11 are very, very similar. Could have been combined actually. So user friendly. If you want to wrap all this up, counseling, after all this gobbledygook I just finished going over with you, these assumptions, basically is your opportunity to sit with somebody highly trained in the area of helping you to overcome a problem without the inclusion of a whole lot of psychotherapy. That's why counseling works in the here and now. If you come to see me, I'm not going to use a psychoanalytical approach and ask you, okay, for the last 13 years and what's been going on, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to say, hey, what's the matter? What's bugging you? And then you'll tell me, well, I had an argument with a good friend of mine last year and we still haven't made up and it's starting to eat me up and I don't know what to do. And boom, there's our stepping off point. Hope you got something out of this. I know it was longer. I didn't mean it to go this long. Next time we're together, I'm probably going to cover a section on how counseling helps, which is something you need to know. That's a basic thing. And I'll see you soon. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.